Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to learn a gambit that grandmasters fear to face, that they find every way possible to avoid it, you have come to the right place. We are talking about the Marshall Gambit, a gambit so fierce in the Ruy Lopez that grandmasters actively avoid it as much as possible. What does it look like? Well, it looks like this. This is the position and this is the gambit. D5. How did we get to this position? Let's go all the way back. It was e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and bishop to b5, the Ruy Lopez. a6, Morphy's defense, bishop to a4, knight to f6, castles. We've seen this all before in my introductory video. Bishop to e7, rook e1, b5, kicking out the bishop, bishop e3, short castles, and now c3. Now c3 allows d5, the Marshall Gambit. Why is it a gambit? Well, it's very simple. Because you take the pawn. And then after takes, knight takes d5, knight takes e5, knight takes e5, and rook takes e5. And you have gained a pawn as white. What is the drawback? Well, there's no inherent drawback. But what happens frequently is that black gets easy compensation. So in the form of like c6, defending the knight. White plays d4, taking space in the center, and now bishop to d6 attacks the rook, rook e1, and queen to h4. And this position is very, very good for black. You can see it is level-ish, 0.02. White's up a pawn. Let's remember, black gambited a pawn, and for that, they have permanent pressure on the white position. They get very active play. And this is why it is so feared. Like, this position has been studied to a draw. It is known to be very draw-ish if white knows absolutely what they're doing. If they do not know what they're doing, you can just hang mate. Like, that is how easy it is. So you've got to play moves like g3. A reminder, all the moves in the description below. And then queen to h3. You're threatening mates. Like, the knight's coming in, the bishop's coming in, the bishop's coming in, the rooks are coming. Like, half of white's army is still asleep. Yeah. And now there's a couple moves for white. You can play bishop to e3, you can play rook e4, you can play queen e2. There's a couple of moves. So, like, queen e2, rook to e4, bishop to e3, I think. And there's a couple moves. So we wind all the way back. To c3. What can white do instead? Well, very simple. c3 is the main line. You can play h3, you can play h4. You can play h4. You can play h3 rather, sorry. You can play a4, targeting the queen side. Sorry. If I misspeak or I look dazed, I've been ill at the time of recording this video. I'm recording this on Tuesday, the 20th of May. It is going out on the 21st of May because I've got varsity tomorrow, even though I probably shouldn't be going, but I'm ill. So if I misspeak or I look dazed, it's because of that. It's not because, I'm recording this really late at night, which I am, but that's not the reason. So h3, h4, and there's also d4. Various moves here. So there's c3, which leads to the Marshall, h3, h4, and d4. This is a very provocative way to play as white, where you can kind of strike in the center, and then you get d6. And this just kind of allows you to avoid the Marshall and to keep to very traditional Spanish territory. But what happens if you allow the Marshall? Is there any, anti-Marshalls? So these are all anti-Marshalls, if we just go back. a4, h3, d4 are your very anti-Marshall setups. But if we allow the Marshall, d5, there is one other move here that gets played. Only one. White declines the gambit by not playing e takes d5, but by playing d4, striking back in the center. Now everybody has got two pawns in the center. And you might say, but hang on, isn't this pawn just hanging? Well, yes, knight takes e4 is the best move is played, but now you get d takes e5, mirror image capture, and now something like bishop to e6, and this position is considerably better for white. White tends to score much better, at least on League Chess in the Masters database, if I'm looking at some of the top moves, because black's pieces are not as active. Remember, black plays the Marshall to get active play. So you might say, well, why isn't then d4 more popular? d4 is not as popular because it can be drawish, and it's not in the spirit of the game. If your opponent offers you a pawn, you should take it. You should take it and capitalize and back yourself to get to this position and to say, I'm not getting checkmated. You should be holding onto that pawn and, playing for all that you can. Like, top GMs play this line. I'm looking at this. I'm like, okay, queen h6, there's only one draw. You should be taking the pawn. You should not be playing. d4. Yes, I know it's fine. And I look at the top line. It's 24% for white, but that's an average rating of 24-11. So you might do fine. E takes d4 with the most popular move that gets played, allowing e5. And this is the point. And now knight to e4, c takes d4, and you get this position, which can be better for white. You've got a slightly more advanced structure, although moves like f6 can come and strike at it really. Black's got a decently placed knight. It can be removed pretty easily, and you can't replace it, but black still gets play. Like, black still has something to play for. Obviously, not going there. That hangs a queen. Black's still got something to play for, and it's a dead draw. So if white really wants to play for the advantage, if they don't play an anti-Marshall, which keeps the game in traditional Spanish territory with traditional Spanish plans, you have to play the Marshall Gambit. You have to take the gambit. You have to take the pawn. All the moves are in the description below. Like, that's all I really have to say. The Marshall Gambit, which gets to this position, and, like, there are ways for white to lose. Obviously, the first one is they just hang mate. But this pressure, like, I know it's a word, and you're like, well, how do I exact pressure? It's not that easy. But white has to do something about the double attack. And if we just go back a couple moves, all the way here, from the starting position of the Marshall, and I just read to you the blurb here. Black is attacking e4 twice. Very simple. And in general, threatening to overrun the center of the board. White has no better option than to accept the pro-offered pawn. So we take. Black recaptures. White accepts. And takes. Black's knight must be saved and from this attack. So very simple. That's why he plays c6. When the American master Frank Marshall surprised future world champion Jose Raul Capablanca, who is one of the best players in the world, with the Marshall Gambit in 1918, his chosen follow-up was 11, knight f6, so he went back, returning the knight to kingside where black's attack will be taking place. But in the century since then, trial and error has caused c6 to be the main line. So even when Marshall developed this, he went here, which gives more advantage for white, you see. And because you get d4, and you still get bishop to d6, but now you can play knight d2, rook back to e1. Sorry, I don't know why I said knight d2. Yeah, you can play rook to e1, which makes the most sense. There's also sometimes you go rook to e2, just giving yourself protection on the second rank, and now the queen doesn't get out. That's why they play c6 and they leave the knight in the center. It's just more active there. So that is one other way to really play this position. Don't know why I'm changing tabs. Anyway, that is the Marshall Gambit. And you might say, but you didn't really show its firepower. I think I did. I'm having an argument with myself. But why I say I did is because in this position, I've told you about c3. You can see it there highlighted on the board. c3 is only played in 44% of games that reach this position on the Chess Masters database, allowing the Marshall. Ladies and gentlemen, like in the Spanish, there are so many ways to avoid the Marshall. They all get played. Like a4 is played 21% of the time. h3 is played 23% of the time. d4 is played 6% of the time. More people avoid the Marshall than allow it. And these are top GMs. Like Magnus Carlsen used the Marshall so effectively. Jan Nepomniachtchi didn't allow it. He was playing all sorts of anti-Marshalls when he played Magnus in their match in 2021, the World Championship match. You can go have a look at it. There are recaps about it. Like, he avoided the Marshall like it's the plague because black equalizes. If I get to the final position, black equalizes so easily despite being a pawn down. They sacrifice the pawn and they get this. And yes, you can say, but white's holding and they're fine. Really? You're telling me white is fine when they've got 5 pieces on the back rank? Yes, black only has 3 not on the back rank, but they're about to have another. And they're going to get the rooks to the center much faster. And they've got some play here on the queen side. Like, how does this knight get out? Where does this bishop go? Like, anywhere it goes, you probably take it or trade it and damage the structure or something like that. This bishop, which is normally a monster, ain't doing anything. This pawn's well defended. And even if the knight moves and opens it up, you don't have to do anything. And not to mention, you can just chase it down with A5, A4. And then you have to herd it onto this diagonal, where, something like H6, and it's not as effective. This is the critical point in the Marshall Gambit. Black has a simple threat. Bishop G4. Yeah, mate. That is it. After which white queen will have to guard against the checkmate square with... so the idea is this, right? So you have to play like bishop here. To allow, like, the main idea would be getting the queen back. So like queen... So if, for example, bishop to e3, we go bishop to g4, and now we play queen d3. So that when, if bishop f3 comes, you get queen to f1. That's the main surviving idea. So now we play rook ae8, putting pressure. And yes, you can see the advantage swelling. It doesn't swell for very long. The more the engine thinks, the more it thinks, black's got something here. And yes, it's 0.8. Are you surviving this position with black? Like, you've got everything you could want. White's just about to get their final piece developed. Yes, you could argue the rook on f8 is not doing much. I'm threatening to mate you at all times if your queen doesn't maintain the ability to go to f1. So let's go a couple moves back. Now, what if not bishop to e3? What if rook to e4? Now, this is not possible. Okay, fine. g5. Whoops. And now, queen f1, forcing queen's trade. But no, queen h5. Black has got all the play. Like, white has to sustain the attack, or defend against the attack, not allow a perpetual, to try and keep the pawn up advantage. Many times they'll have to give the pawn back. That is the big problem. You might argue, hang on, isn't this pawn hanging? Oops. Don't fall into that trap. Not everything is free in life. And that's all I have to say for the Marshall Gambit. We'll end on that little trick. I hope you enjoyed it. Moves are in the description down below.